I will start my speech in 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. A few models to clarify today's debate. The first model is the lower rate of income tax. What does this look like? Ladies and gentlemen, the government shall lower the tax for women until the pay or the income is similar to the male, or it is similar to everyone working in the same occupation, in the same position. Meaning, in today's debate, when people, male or female, work and do the same job, they shall be paid the same. We give an illustration. For example, a male film director gets paid 100k and has to pay income tax, and a woman film director is paid 70k per month. But we in today's debate, we are giving the woman film director a lower income tax. So in the end, both of the film director, the male film director and the female film director will receive 60k and 60k. So we see that in today's debate, when they do the same job as in the same capability, they shall receive the same pay, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important to see that in today's debate, men will not be paid less, but women will actually get more from the same job that they do as any other gender in the world. The second model is about the word offset. So offset is basically making it normal or removing the gender gap that we have in today's world. And the third model is about income tax. Income tax is indeed controlled by the government. So this is actually the initiative made by the government to solve the gender pay gap that is happening in the status quo, and this is our solution. The burden of proof for the government side is that we want to achieve a equal gender pay, meaning that there will be no gender feeling superior that they will get more pay, ladies and gentlemen. And the opposition today should provide a better solution to solve the issue at hand, which is the gender pay gap, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on, we look at the status quo. Ladies and gentlemen, we do agree that gender pay gap exists in today's world. And we say, the government say that it is bad. It is not okay. We should not tolerate gender pay gap. We say that the status quo is bad and we need to change it right now, today. So why is it true that status quo of gender pay gap is bad? First reason why is it true is that it creates an unjust environment in the working society. Note that because pay or income is ought to be equal, people should be paid the same amount of work that they have done. Pay is ought to be equal, and when gender pay gap exists, it is not equal, thus it creates an unjust environment in the working society. Second reason why gender pay gap is bad is because it makes the man feeling more empowered and women feeling that they have less power. This is very bad, ladies and gentlemen. So why is it bad? Two reasons. First, people will feel less appreciated as if they do not do the same work as a male. Female will feel like they are underappreciated. Second reason why this is bad is because they will not give their best. When they know that they will receive lower pay than a man, then they will not give their full effort in the occupation that they are doing, because they know that even if I give my full effort, even if I give my effort more than a male worker, I will still get less. So this is why gender pay gap is bad. So why is it important that pay is equal in all professions? First reason, because it is the right of people who do the same amount of job to get the same amount of pay. And second reason why is it important, it's because people will be happy. Male and female workers would cooperate together, knowing that when they do the same amount of job, they will get the same amount of pay. Ladies and gentlemen, before I move on to my argument, any points coming from opposition side? Thank you very much. Moving on to my argument, which is making everyone equal. Ladies and gentlemen, men and women should be put on the same pedestal. They should be equal in the working environment, ladies and gentlemen. So why is it true that we should make men and women equal? First reason why is it true? Because when gender pay gap is removed, people would automatically be equal. There would be no discrimination. Male and female shall receive the same amount of pay, and this is why when we remove the gender pay gap completely by lowering the tax of the women workers, this is how we are getting the equal pay in the long run, ladies and gentlemen. So why is the second reason why is it true is because they would be paid equally for the work that they have done, ladies and gentlemen. So why is it good if gender pay gap is removed in the first place? First, people would be giving their full potential in the work that they are doing, because they know that when they work hard for the corporation or the institution that they are working in, they will achieve or they will get the same pay as
Your
everyone
answer?
working hard. Before I move on, yes.
How do you say that these men and women will be paid equally when actually the initial pay is not equal to begin with? You say that you're going to lower the tax, but then that's not going to equate these two pay we call pay between men and women. So how do you clarify that, please?
Thank you very much. We already say, yes, we do know that the pay is not equal in the first place. This is the government initiative. Make it clear that the government is making it equal. The government know that the problem exists, so the government is making the pay equal by lowering the tax of the women workers, ladies and gentlemen. So please make it clear in your upcoming speeches. So the second reason why is it good if gender pay gap is removed is that because it creates no superiority. Everyone is equal and it creates a good atmosphere at the working place. People would be respected, people would be more cooperating with each other. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, the third level of analysis, why is it important that gender pay gap is removed? First, we encourage women to go to work. Ladies and gentlemen, when women knows that they will be paid less, they will be less likely to go to work competing with the male workers. But when we say that they will get the same amount of pay, then this would encourage them to go to join the working force to lessen their burden and also lessen their burden of their family. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, finally, by using this government mechanism, occupation is equal. And because of that, the government is proud to propose. Thank you very much.
Thank you. To kickstart opposition's case, I welcome Leader of Opposition. Here.
Excuse me, am I audible?
Yes.
Oh. Salah background, Zeti.
Tak apa. This background ke apa kat whatever lah. Later we change.
Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So a very good morning to all the members of the floor. So today, debating on the motion that this House would apply a lower rate of income tax to women to offset the gender pay gap, I, as the leader of opposition, I will be doing three things in my speech today. Firstly, I will be giving few rebuttals to what the Prime Minister has said today. Secondly, I will be giving out our own definition on our own case on how are we going to solve the problem. And thirdly, I'm also going to be giving one argument under our side. Okay, so what has the Prime Minister come up and told us today in today's debate? Okay, so firstly, he said that their burden of proof is to prove that in taxation they will actually get equal gender pay. Whereas on our side, they push the burden that we have to prove, you have to find a better solution to fix this problem. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, one thing about this is that the flaw that the side of government has failed to realize is that by cutting the taxation, by decreasing the taxation rates of the woman, it does not actually make the pay of the woman equal to the man, because in the first place the maximum amount of pay is still men still has more pay than women. We think that this will still create a stigma in the eyes of the company and eyes of the government itself. Okay, moving on. Moving on, the Prime Minister has come up and told us lots and lots of benefits of equal gender pay, equal gender pay, equal gender pay. And to that, we say that equal gender pay is good. And this is what we're fighting for in the first place. So I think that this is something unnecessary for us, for you to actually prove, because we agree this is not what we're supposed to be debating about. We're supposed to be debating about whether taxation is actually the true solution to fixing these gender pay problems, to make it equal, let's say. Okay, so we think that in their side, they have not given us any proof. They have not given us any proof on how to solve this problem itself. Okay, but before I go further, go ahead.
Yes, you said that the taxation would not work to create an equal pay, but do explain more why it doesn't work.
Okay, that is exactly what I'm going to be explaining in my argument. Firstly, I'm going to be providing a counter proposal to your case. Instead of reducing women's tax, we think that we instead should increase the women's pay in the first place. Not because the problem with the gender pay gap is that the wages are different. So why do we not make the wages the same? Why do we want to make men pay more than women in the taxes? To make it same. I think that this does not solve the problem. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. Our counter proposal is we're going to raise it to be the same as men, to raise the wages to be equal to men wages according to what they work as, of course. Okay, so what we're going to prove firstly is how taxation is actually ineffective, and secondly, why we should actually go the extra mile to increase the wages of women in the first place. Okay. As they had POI'd me just now, they asked how to explain how taxation actually doesn't work. Okay, here's the thing. I'm going to take the example. As an example, the filmmaker, a male filmmaker makes 100K, and then a woman filmmaker takes 70K, makes 70K, and then they're suddenly going to reduce the taxation for the woman and still stay the same for the men. So then suddenly they have 60K and 60K. You have to realize in this case that this is actually very, very harmful in the first place, because what we're trying to do is actually to help women, right? To decrease the stigma that women should be paid less than men. Women are to decrease the stigma that women are actually equal to men. Is inferior to men. Okay, so what happens? It shows that when women pay less, it shows that men pay more. The original price, they pay more than women because women decrease. Yeah, you understand my point, right? So the more it shows that men actually contribute more to society, they pay more to the government. It shows that men still have more power than women in the first place. Men pay more. So we think that when this happens, this will still create the mindset. This will not solve the problem of what you're trying to fix in the first place. We think that it will show that women, the mindset that women are actually women are more dispensable than men, and men are still more useful and more worthy than women in the first place to work that job. So we think that your idea will create this stigma and make it worse, and which is why it is very counterproductive in the first place. Okay, moving on. Okay, so. So we think that when we increase the woman's pay, we think that this stigma will not exist on our side. The stigma will actually be reduced, will be lessened in our side, whereas in your side, the stigma will keep on rising because you, in a sense, you actually give more. You should actually give men. You prove that men are actually more contributive to the society. Men are more powerful than women. So we think that. That actually just proves that why it is harmful. Okay, so moving on to a few comparisons of our world and their world. Okay, what happens in the opposition world? What happens in the government world? Their best case scenario is that, okay, sure, women and men are going to have the same pay, but we think that in the best case scenario, they're still going to have this stigma will still exist. The stigma will still be at large, where men are still stronger and more superior than women. Whereas in our case, in the government, in the opposition's world, what will happen is that we still solve the problem. We increase the wages. The wages are increased, so both sides receive equal pay, equal wages, and we think that on our side we actually fix the problem more because these stigmas that men are more superior than women are actually fixed in the first place. And also, we also fix. We make sure that this does not happen the other way. Does not bring oppression to men because the taxation rates are still the same in the first place. Because we want to maintain. We want to fix the problem of gender pay gap, which means that we do not have to only cater to women, but we have to cater to men as well. And with that, I've never been prouder to oppose. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we continue, just very quickly, who spoke first?
Me, Idlan.
Okay, who will be speaking second?
Second, speaking will be Nabil.
Okay, third,
Dayang Zati.
who will be giving reply?
Idlan.
Opposition government, who will be giving reply?
Me, Nira.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Deputy Prime Minister, here.
Okay, I'll start soon. Okay, I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, in a world of constant bickering, denying, and rebutting of social issues, most importantly, the gender pay gap issue, it is in the hands of the government to take on this burden to ensure that this problem may be solved effectively. Before I move on to how we are to solve these issues and why we provide the better case in this debate, I will move on to my rebuttals by some of the points made by the Leader of Opposition. The Leader of Opposition, before that, some clarification made by the POI, by second speaker. How does income tax work in order to offset the gender pay gap? How it does is that according to the wage that you get and the social class that you are in, it starts off from 8%, increases to 12 and 24% of your actual salary. In the end, your net salary is not going to be the same as the salary that the corporation or the people that you work for has provided. In the end, by lowering income tax, it puts women, it evens out the inequality, because the net salary of a woman will be the same as the net salary of a man. Now, what the leader of opposition has provided a counter proposal that instead of lowering income tax, we increase the women's pay. However, the problem in this is that it is not in the government's control to increase the women's pay, because a lot of people work in private institutions, in corporations, where it is outside of the government's control to ensure that this can happen effectively. If they were to give out incentives to these private corporations that, okay, here's some money for you to increase to increase the pay in women, they might even use it for things such as corruption and not provide it to the women. Again, not in the government's control, which means that this counter proposal is actually very shaky. And they also talked about how their counter proposal will have lesser stigma, because it will make it seem as if our proposal is that they say that there will be more stigma on our side, because it will make it seem as if men are more contributive to the society. However, how could you say that when, if with that analogy, you could say that the middle class are less contributive to the society as compared to the wealthy people? But we both know that the driving force of every single economy is the middle class, but they pay less tax than the wealthy. It is not a matter of the tax that they pay that reflects their contributory to the society or the state. It is the work that they do, and we believe that is pure discrimination and simply an act of supremacy that they are trying to point out to our side, which holds no truth. The reason why I would like to reclarify about how lowering income tax can actually work is, again, this will be in the form of incentive. Look, you cannot just simply give extra money for those who does not get enough pay. For example, you don't just give more money to the poor people. You provide incentive. You don't just throw out money for poor people. Okay, so you don't earn enough, I'm just going to give you money. That is not how it works. You need to set out a stable and efficient policy in order to ensure that it runs smoothly. And this comes in the form of taxation. The tax given to poor people are much lower than the tax given to middle class, and in some cases, poor people don't even have to pay tax. This is a form of incentive, and it is not unfair. It's just, and it works. That is the most important thing, is that it works. Now, moving on to my claim. Why do we support this motion? Because we want to achieve a consistent equal pay. It is not just enough that we want to achieve equal pay. We want to achieve something in the long run which is consistent, and this is achievable through our policy. Why is this true? Because government incentives made by the government is easier to control, because income tax people are controlled by the government. No matter whether you work in the government or the private sector, income tax is always controlled by the government. It is within our control to set up this policy and ensure its effectivity. Secondly, policies made by the government, if one were to go against it, they will be sanctioned. So even if corporations were to go against this, they would be penalized, and they would be put into their place. And this will ensure that none of these corporations or private institutions actually go out of their way to avoid this policy. Secondly, government can ensure that it's always going to go to the right way. For example, such as what the leader of opposition has provided with their counter proposal. Sure, you can increase the wage of the women, but how are you going to ensure that the money is always going to go to the right way? How are you supposed to ensure that there will be no corruption in the money that you provide, for example, to private institutions to increase the wages on their workers solely on their gender? Why is achieving a consistent equal pay good? It is good because the company's personal choice will not ever affect the women's pay. How is this true? Because even if the company that they work for is misogynistic, their boss is misogynistic, it won't ever affect. The boss could pay the women so much more lesser than they do to their male workers. But at the end of the day, this government taxation, this income tax, this lower income tax will always ensure that the women's pay is always equal. Why is this good? It's because it also reduces poverty made by unequal pay, because it will reduce a gap in the group of people that gain more and gain less. And thirdly, because because single mothers and middle class are able to provide for their family. In the U.S., which is the first world country, there are 80% of the people in the U.S. are actually parented by single parents, primarily single mothers. This ensures that these people are actually able to provide for their family effectively and ensure the safety and the healthy of their children and their society. Why is it so important? Because we want to ensure that women are not discriminated in the workforce. Secondly, because we want to protect the middle class, which are the driving force of our economy, which uplifts the economy and reduces poverty for the working class. It also brings awareness to corporations and society. In the end, we will make corporations and society aware that because no matter what they do, whatever discrimination that they provide to these women, in the end, they will hold no power against these women, because this lower income tax policy will always win. Thank you very much. The government is proud to propose.
Thank you. Deputy Prime Minister, here. Before then, government, which motion did you veto?
We vetoed motion 1.
Okay. Deputy Leader of Opposition?
Right, am I audible?
Yes.
Right, I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, to all the members of the hall. So for today, I'll be doing two things. Number one, I'll be giving my rebuttals for the government side, and then afterwards, I will give the second argument from the opposition side as an extension to what is the end. How are we going to prove our end goal in our case? So without further ado, let's move on with the rebuttals. So for the rebuttals, I have basically summarized the speeches from the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister into two main themes, which I think will cover up most of it. Number one is about corruption, and number two is about whether or not the lowering income tax will make the men and women's wages equal. So let's first start off with the corruption argument given by the Deputy Prime Minister. So she said that the reason why you don't increase the women's pay gap is women's wages is because that you are not so sure whether or not you're giving the money to the right people, because some people would then commit a lot of corruption, which is, I feel like, something that is very harmful to your side. Because are you saying that women are more prone to commit corruption than men? Because I don't think corruption should be something that we should discuss in this debate. Because no, miss. So the reason is because when you are trying to debate on whether or not income tax will actually solve the problem of gender pay gap, the problem issue of corruption, which is already happening in the status quo, shouldn't be a question. It doesn't matter or not. It doesn't matter if you were to increase the women's wages, and this will lead to more corruption. It has nothing to do with it. We are only trying to achieve equality and trying to destroy the systemic misogyny that we have in the status quo. So that's why I feel like the issue of corruption shouldn't even be talked about. And even so, it is still not good to say that women are more prone to commit a lot of corruption. No, let me explain my rebuttals first. All right, moving on to my next issue, which is whether or not lowering the income tax make it equal. So this is a burden proof that the government really needs to explain. And I feel like the government only explains about the benefits of gender pay gap, more to why the income tax would actually make it equal. So they are so confident that by making the income tax, by decreasing the income tax for women so that it will be equal as men, would actually solve the whole problem of gender pay gap. But I feel like they're not looking at the bigger picture here. I feel like we need to look at the perspective of the company that actually pays the men and women these wages. Because when you think about it, in their side, the company will only pay they don't need to pay any difference from the current status quo, because they still pay men more and they still pay women less. The only difference is that the women will get a compensation afterwards, but it has nothing to do with the company because it's in the form of a tax. Therefore, are you saying that the company still does not need to respect women afterwards? Are you saying that the company can still pay less to the women as much as they want, as long as the income tax still decreases to the same as men? So this is something that my leader of opposition has already been talking about, which is about the stigma. Yes, the systemic misogyny in our world is still occurring, and the reason why we want to narrow the gender pay gap is to actually destroy that system. The idea of how men are more superior than women. It's not only about trying to achieve the same wages all the time. It's more to like have giving acknowledgement and respect to women so that women are valued the same as men. So I can continue on this in my analysis, where if you were to look at the government side, it's actually prolonging the issue, because I feel like the government side's case about lowering the income tax is actually a safe way to somehow narrow the gender wage gap. It's not actually solving the real core of the problem, which is the systemic misogyny itself. So if you were to lower the tax income, you're only prolonging the issue, because you're not actually solving the problem of women not getting respected. Yes, they will get the same money, but so what? They're not getting respected. Companies still pay them less, and company will so never give the same wages to both men and women, which is supposed to be something we need to talk about, because women actually work the same as men. They give the same effort, yet they don't get to get paid the same from the company, even though you give them a compensation afterwards. So now let's move on with the argument. But before I move on to my argument, I take one POI.
Yes,
Right.
please. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Anyway.
Please explain. We already told you that the government cannot just give money according to your mechanism. Please explain how your mechanism still works.
No. I think the government really needs to understand. On our counter proposal, what we are trying to explain is that the reason we need to increase the women's wages is because it's something that the company can actually do and can actually reach the end goal of the situation. Because understand that women work the same way as men, and therefore they still get paid less for whatever reason. And I think it's basically the reason comes back from history, where women are just starting to work and therefore they don't get paid more than with men who already been in the company for a long time. So this is actually the problem in the status quo actually. So that's why we need to actually make it fair and just say to everyone that no, we're just going to increase the women's pay gap, women's wages, so that it will be actually the same as men, because they work the same as men. They sometimes can even do better than men in a certain company, in a certain role in a workplace. So no, I'm going to explain my argument. I'm running out of time. All right. So my argument is about a drastic change is a must in our side. So let me first explain to you why the opposition actually addresses the issue as soon as possible. Because right now, our side is actually making a direct solution to the problem. By increasing the women's wages, it's actually trying to make it equal from the start. The company needs to pay the same to the women and for both genders, and therefore this will already solve the problem of the gender pay gap and also make it narrower. So why is it important to address it now? First of all, it will not bring, because in the government side, it will actually bring harm to the women. Like I said, systemic misogyny also exists and people are still not getting respected. But another reason is because it's on our side, we are completely acknowledging the issue of the gender pay gap. So we're not actually undermining the issue at all by saying that we are just giving compensation to women as if they don't work enough in the workplace in the first place. So that's why we feel like in our side, we address the issue and the main reason of the gender gender pay gap in the first place. And also another point to take into account is that there is no reason to not increase the women's wages in the first place, because the company already has the money. They can give the same amount of money to both genders, but they don't do so. And I feel like by lowering the income tax, you're just making an excuse to the society as a whole that women shouldn't be paid more, but we're just giving them a small compensation. So therefore, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you. To conclude the substantive portion of government's case, I welcome Gafwip. Here.
Am I audible?
Yes.
I start my speech in 3, 2. Sorry. I start my speech in 3, 2, 1. In today's debate, it is clear that both the government and the opposition side wants to achieve the same thing, which is that we want to offset the gender pay gap. But let's take a look at both of the solutions that the government and the opposition side have given. So the government side, we clarified how our mechanism would work. In the end of the day, when we decrease the income tax to women, we will give them the net salary that would be the same to the male counterpart of the same of the same profession and the same position. But their side, what they have been talking about, their solution is they want to just increase the women pay so that they could offset this gender pay gap. But before that, as the third speaker from the government side, I would like to do two things in my speech. First, I will address a few issues that have been happening into this debate, and second, I will compare the clashes and why the government side take to this debate home. So let's move on to the issues that have been happening into this debate. Firstly, they talk about how the taxation, when we decrease the taxation rate to women, it will not fix the gender pay gap. Ladies and gentlemen, we already clarified to you so many times how our mechanism would work. In the end of the day, we would achieve the net salary. The net salary of the woman would be the same with the men of the same counterpart, of the same profession and the same position, and that is how our model would work. So let's put aside all of the mathematical works into this debate. So that is how our mechanism work, and we prove to you how it work, like what my speakers have stated before. Then their side talk about how we should just increase women's pay, because the problem, okay, so our problem is the same in the status quo, that the gender pay is different, and why don't we just make it the same? But ladies and gentlemen, first, why actually the government come up with this solution? Because there are things that we can control directly, and we cannot control these corporations and the money that they will give to these women that works under their corporations. And second, we can monitor and control the income tax that will come back to government, because it is simply controlled by the government's body. This is what that we can do. This is the thing that we can do. And we cannot just tell the corporations, because we already do that a long time ago. We know that these things have been a problem in our society. We already told them that that they should give the women the same income as men, but they didn't do this in the first place. And while in their work, their model is that they told us that we should just increase the women's pay gap. Ladies and gentlemen, we wish that it could be that easy. We could just say that, okay, just increase the women's pay, then we could fix the problem. We told you how it is not under the authority of government to just force this corporation to pay women the same as men. Then they also talk about how when women pay less tax, men will pay more, and people will think that men will have more power. Ladies and gentlemen, we tell you why this will not happen. Because when men will pay more, they will realize that they will be irritated. They will feel that, oh, this is unfair. But then what will happen? In the end of the day, they will be aware of the root problem, on the main cause, which is the gender pay gap, and they will try to offset this and fight for the equality at hand. Then they talk about stigma and what is more harmful in the government side, and how But the question is, how will it create a harmful stigma in our world rather than in their world? Because in our world, in the end of the day, when we realize the root cause of the problem, which is the gender pay gap, and we'll try to offset this. And in the end of the day, the men and all parts of the society will be more aware of the issues. While in their world, their side are living in the world of magic, where they just say, oh, increase women pay gap, then poof, gender pay gap is fixed. Then they also talk about how they talk about respect, how company will not respect women because they don't need to pay women as the same. They don't need to pay women the same salary as men in the company. But we adjust to this issue more in the long run because the corporations will realize in the end how much they discriminate these women. They will still lose more in the end of the day. Then they also talk about how the drastic change is a must. But in our world, we believe that this is true, but our solution works better and our solution cater to this problem better than in their world where they just believe in magic when they could just say that pay them more then gender pay gap is gone at all. So the clash into this debate is it is clear that our side, both of the sides have the same direction and have the same goal, which is we want to offset and we want to make the problem gone, which is the gender pay gap. But which solution actually works? Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you why our solution works better than in their world. So we told you that our solution is an initiative to offset the pay gap because we could. This is the only thing. This is the thing that we could do. This is the things that we are capable of. We are capable of controlling the tax because it will come back to us and it is controlled simply in the first place by the government's body. This is the things that we can do, and we don't actually just go do things that we can't control. While in their word, like what I have told you, they just like they want to say that just pay women more, then the problem would be gone. It is not that easy. I told you that this is not that easy, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why we believe that our solution works better than their solution, and in the long run, our solution would actually provide more awareness to people. As when men realize they will have to pay more tax to the government, they will know that the root cause of the problem, which is the gender pay gap itself, and in the end of the day, they will. In the end of the day, the gender pay gap in our world could be offset, while in their world, I wish that is that easy to I wish it is that easy to counter to this problem. And ladies and gentlemen, who actually solve this problem in the long run? So like what I have told you, we believe that the government's mechanism, the government's model, and the government solution to this problem is better and cater more to this problem more than in their world, than the opposition sides. And this is why and this is why we believe that today's motion should be accepted simply because we want to achieve equal pay between genders in the long run we want to create more awareness to people. And ladies and gentlemen, that is why we the government side are proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you. To conclude opposition's substantive material, I welcome opposition whip. Here.
Without further ado, good morning to all members of the floor. Today, what I would want to do as opposition whip speaker is that, first of all, I would like to provide some clarifications on our case as side opposition. And second of all, I would like to provide the clashes and issues that have been identified from today's debate. And thirdly, I would like to provide a comparison as a conclusion to today's debate. So first of all, I would like to come up with some clarification. So since the first Prime Minister speaker, I specifically and I quote say he said that they want to in today's debate they want to ensure that male female have the same who have the same job receive same pay, and then suddenly they say that the men will not be paid less, and then they said again that this is the initiative by the government to solve the status quo, which is the gender pay gap, and they want to achieve equal pay. So ever since the first speaker, there has been some inconsistencies whether they say that they want to actually give the same pay, provide the same pay to to these both genders, or do they actually want to lower the rate of income tax, which is the spirit of the motion in today's debate. So second of all is that
POI?
they say the status quo is bad and they want to solve the problem today and now, and we have already proved to you on side opposition that sure, we also want to solve the solution. We have solved the problem today and now, but however, we have also shown to you how side government is actually prolonging the problem today. They are actually standing still and they're actually encouraging the social stigma on women being inferior to men, and they're prolonging this actual problem today. So ever since Prime Minister's speech, they have only been pushing for the benefits of offsetting the gender pay gap. They do not actually really explain to us how lowering the income tax to women will actually offset the gender pay gap, which is the spirit of today's motion. So first of all, that is why side government has lost the debate in the first place, because they have failed to actually identify the spirit of today's motion. Second of all, on side opposition, we have already told you how we have already proved to you how taxation is actually counterproductive, because even if we decrease the income tax of the woman, the pay will still be the same at the end of the day. The initial pay will still be the same at the end of the day, and this will give you the idea that men will still be receiving the higher amount of pay compared to women.
You know
and this is a small sum. No, please warm your seats. So this will
You know
actually warm your seats, please. So this will actually show you how it's so small a step to actually address the issue in today's debate. And second of all, opposition has already told to you. We have proved to you why we should go to the extra mile to actually increase the women's wages in the first place, because we address the issue as soon as possible. We want to address the issue as soon as possible, so that we do not prolong the issue like state government. And then we want to show you how we acknowledge the women more under our side. We acknowledge the social stigma that is detrimental to women in the first place, and then how it harms the women on government side more. So moving on to my questions. No, please warm your seats. Let me finish. So first of all, my first clash would be which side helps the woman more. So in DPM speech, they said that decreasing the income tax will be increasing the women's pay. They even came up with all these examples, but at the end of the day, I say that the initial pay is still the same. The corporates still pay men more than how women, and then they came up with the example of middle class less contributing to the government just because they're in the middle class. And then we say that the debate today is not about economic hierarchy. We're actually talking on equal setting in workplace, but the unequal outcomes just because of gender, the unequal pay given to females and males. So our main argument today is about gender pay discrepancies. We are saying that side government through to us how we're going to ensure less corruption, and we say that that's not in the spirit in today's motion. We say that corruption still exists on both sides, but then government is still not doing anything to do it, and then they throw the blame. I say that corruption will still exist more under our side. Now, please warm your seats. Let me finish. Third of all, they say please explain how government gives more money to women to increase the pay. We say that no, we don't give more money to women to increase the pay. The government doesn't give women the money or the pay. They take the income tax, and then we on opposition side, we actually reduce the problem by shining light on the actual issue on gender pay gap. We take into consideration that these companies, these corporations, these organizations actually have the means to increase women's pay. Why? Because they have a multitude revenue platforms to reel in to actually increase the women's pay, and these are the things that some government has already failed to take into consideration in the first place. They failed to take into consideration all stakeholders. They only talk about the government. How about the corporates, the companies themselves? They say that they have been doing this, that it's ineffective beforehand, but then we say that Sure, even if it's ineffective beforehand, now we have to push it. We have to do something to push it. And under our side, we are actually doing something to push it because we want to actually achieve the end goal today, which is equal pay for both men and women. So what I have told you today, I have told you why our side on opposition has won today's debate. I have proven to you how side government is shaky in their stance, is shaky in their mechanism, is shaky in all their levels of analysis. And thirdly, I've already provided to you the clashes in today's debate. Third of all, I want to provide a fair comparison between side government and side opposition. On the government's best case scenario, social stigma still exists, and this is detrimental to the females in the first place, and it's not going to help offset the gender pay gap in the long run. We are talking long term. However, on the opposition side, we actually cater to the problem in the long run. How? Because at the end of the day, true equality is not a dream, but it is obviously a possibility under our side. So without further ado, I have never been prouder to oppose. So please side with side opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. To conclude ops case, op reply. Here.
Excuse me, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, but the reply time is 4 minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so good morning once again to all the members of the floor. So right now I will be giving the reply speech for the opposition side to prove that why we, the opposition side, win today's debate. Okay, so first things first, let's take a step back from the debate today and let me tell you a story. Okay, so we have to think. Let's go back in time. Okay, basically, why we have to think about the reasons. Okay, why does this gender gap? Why does discrimination against women exist? Okay, why does the gender gap in the first place exist? It's because why the difference in pay exists is because in the first place, this discrimination against women, thinking that men are more superior than women, is this misogynic behavior that actually causes the gender gap wages issues in the first place. So we think that by combating these issues directly, by getting rid of the stigma of this misogynic stigma that men are better than women, we think that we solve the problem. Not only do we solve the problem of the pay wages, we also solve the problem of the society as a whole in the future. Okay, so what have we told you? What has the opposition told you in this case? Sorry, what has the government told you in today's debate? Government has kept on pushing, saying they have been trying to attack our case by saying that about corruption or whatnot. We think that this is something that is very not accurate in today's debate. Okay, because we are not giving, and they say that they assume that we are giving money to the people, to the women, but instead we're actually just making the company pay wages, increase the wages of the women so that it is equal to what the man pays, because it is fair, because they do the same work and therefore they should receive the same amount of pay and the same amount of respect, as has been said by my second speaker. And about the respect here is basically, even though we are taking into consideration in the case, okay, sure, even if you say that in the end the pay of the net pay of the woman and the man are equal in the end of the day, okay, taking this into consideration, even if we consider this, what will happen is that the company still does not pay any more to the woman, and the pay of the woman still is the same. And in this case, we think that the discrimination and disrespect for women in the first place does not actually get fixed. The root problem is still there, and we think that this will not actually solve the problem of the gender pay issues, because we have to remember, as I said earlier, the main reason it happens is because of this misogynic stigma. And when you do not fix the stigma, problems will still occur. Even if the best case it does solve the problem, there will still be problems that occur in the future. Okay. Secondly, moving on. Okay, I want to compare who actually catered to the problem in the first place, who catered to the problem better. Okay, so we, on side of opposition, we have told you that we cater by attacking these stigmas directly, by giving money directly, so that these stigmas do not become a problem in the first place. Whereas on government side, they have been pushing on putting taxes, but they do not actually acknowledge the fact that this stigma will continue to exist, which we think that this is something very bad that the government has. The government, it is very regrettable that they have not taken this into consideration. So what would the world look like under government side and under opposition side? So under government side, the stigma will still exist, and women will still be oppressed and still have lots of problems against this misogynic stigma. Whereas in our case, even in our case scenario, let's say even if the stigma still exists, we say that at least we try to mitigate it from the sector of pay and wages, and we actually do something to solve the problem in the first place. In fact, I've never been prouder to oppose. Thank you very much.
Thank you. To conclude the debate, Gov reply. Here.
Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, the core issue of this debate is not how or why gender pay gap exists in the first place. The core issue is which mechanism solves gender pay gap with the maximum benefits and minimum negatives. This is the core issue. Is our proposal is trying to help the women achieve equal pay gap using the government's money. What happens is, by lowering income tax, the net salary, the final clean salary of these both workers, men and women, will eventually become the same because of the different income taxation. Now, what are the issues that some of the issues that was brought up by side opposition was that when men pay more tax, they will feel more superior and feel as if they are the ones that are contributing the most to society, and therefore the stigma will only increase. However, if you were to say this, then you would also say that middle class have a higher sense of superiority over those who are wealthy, when in actual fact they don't. Middle class pay less income tax as compared to wealthy people, yet they don't feel any form of supremacy over the wealthy people. They don't. They are the biggest contribution to our economy, yet this stigma does not exist in that case, which is the status quo, and in so will not exist in our case. The issue is not as important as the status quo has shown it to be. Now, the issues that we have brought up is we want to ensure the consistency and the efficiency of our policies and how they act out. All right, the government is in charge of controlling these income taxes. If you were to go against it, you will be sanctioned, you will be put to court, you will be held with accountability. However, according to the Oppo, by simply increasing the wages of the women, then how does that improve the consistency and the efficiency when it is not within the government's power to disturb the businesses of the private corporations? In fact, if you were to give more money to the corporations, to give more money to the women, simply because of the unequal pay, first of all, the corporations are the one that is giving unequal pay. What makes you think that giving money to these corporations will make them want to pay their women workers? The only thing they're going to do is go against it and use that money for corruption. And the thing with corruption is that if a corporation is wealthy enough to commit corruption with enough money, they can avoid accountability, as so many private corporations in status quo have avoid accountability in terms of corruption. Now, moving on to the clashes. What does our world look like? Now, first of all, the worst case of our world is that the government in short term would have less money than they used to. However, in the long term, by lowering income tax of women, we are able to fix that. In the long term, we can raise awareness to these corporations and in fact society in order to make them more aware of the actual gender pay gap. And while we are struggling in the short term, we can also increase the taxation of the richest and decrease the benefits of the politicians. Our best case is that we achieve equal pay in short term with consistency and effectively. But in the long term, we are able to eradicate gender pay gap completely because we are able to raise awareness and improve society outlook on the gender pay gap. Corporations, no matter what they do, no matter how discriminatory and sexist they become, they will soon to realize that it is a form of discrimination, and whatever they do in that sense will lose. The best case for Oppa is that in short case there will be equal pay, but that's wrong because because corporations can still manipulate and slither around the extra wages that they give, and it won't even give awareness. The long term is that there will be more stigma and it will be more counterproductive as it will look like as if men are paid, women are paid more simply because of their gender, which is exactly what the problem of gender pay gap is. So their worst case and their best case are both inevitably losers, which is why today the government is going to win this debate. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. The results will be announced to you in a short while in the roll call meeting. Please go there. Cross floors, virtually shake hands if you want to. Thank you all for the debate. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very
judges.
much.
Thank you, UM. Thank you very
and
much.
educators. Thank you to Team UM2 as well for this debate.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
And then to thank you back.